On April 13, 2026, an alarm went off inside one of the most secure government systems in France. Someone was inside. Someone was downloading everything. Passport records, national identity cards, driver's licenses, dates of birth, home addresses, phone numbers, millions of them. By the time anyone reacted, it was already too late. 11.7 million personal records had been copied, and within hours, they were listed for sale on the dark web. The French government launched an emergency investigation. Cybercrime units were mobilized. The Ministry of the Interior issued a public statement. 12 days later, they found the hacker. He was 15 years old. If you're a French citizen, chances are your data sits inside one system. It's called ANTS, the Agence Nationale des Titres Sécurisés. In English, the National Agency for Secure Documents. Every time someone in France applies for a passport, renews a driver's license, requests a national ID card, or files for a residence permit, it goes through ANTS. The agency processes tens of millions of applications every year, all through a single online portal, ants.gouv.fr. Think of it as the digital vault of French identity. Names, birth dates, photographs, addresses, phone numbers, everything the state knows about you, in one place. By 2026, ANTS had accumulated records on roughly 19 million users. That's nearly a third of France's entire population. And in early 2026, the agency was given an even bigger responsibility. The French government handed ANTS the task of managing its brand new age verification app, a tool specifically designed to stop children under 15 from accessing social media without parental consent. The system that was supposed to protect children's data online was about to be torn apart by a child. But here's what makes this story worse. In September 2025, reports surfaced on underground forums that ANTS had already been breached. Approximately 12 to 13 million records appeared for sale. The data had been circulating on the dark web for months. ANTS never publicly confirmed it happened. No public disclosure. No forced password resets. No visible changes to their security. If they knew, they didn't act. If they didn't know, that's even more alarming. 7 months later, someone walked through the same open door. On April 16, 2026, a post appeared on one of the largest cybercriminal forums in the world. The user went by the name Breach3D, a play on the word breached. The post was written in fluent English, structured like a professional press release, and opened with a single line. Today we are announcing a major breach of the ANTS, the French government agency responsible for secure identification and official titles. The post claimed the database contained between 18 and 19 million records, full names, email addresses, dates of birth, home addresses, phone numbers, login credentials, unique account identifiers, a near-complete civil profile of millions of French citizens. And then, the part that made cybersecurity experts lose their minds. Breach3D didn't use a zero-day exploit. He didn't deploy custom malware. He didn't breach a firewall or crack an encryption key. He used something far simpler. The vulnerability was called IDOR, Insecure Direct Object Reference. It's one of the most well-known, most documented, and most basic security flaws in existence. It has been listed in the OWASP Top 10, the global standard for web security risks, for over a decade. It's one of the first things a junior developer learns to avoid. Here's how it worked. When a user logged into their ANTS account, the system assigned them a numerical ID. That ID appeared in the API request, the behind-the-scenes communication between your browser and the server. Profile number 1, profile number 2, profile number 3. The problem? The server never checked whether the person making the request had permission to view that profile. There was no authorization, no verification, nothing. All Breach3D had to do was change a single number in the URL. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 19 million. In his own words, leaked on a French cybersecurity blog, he described the flaw as, quote, a really stupid vulnerability. He wasn't wrong. The data was real. ANTS later confirmed its authenticity, and Breach3D wasn't shy about it. In his forum post, he added a final line that would go viral in cybersecurity circles. It seems the French government would do better to stick to the culinary arts. Their digital defenses are as crumbly as their croissants. The post spread fast. Within hours, it reached Telegram, Discord, Reddit, and every major cybersecurity news outlet on the planet. Even Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, personally flagged the breach, estimating it at roughly 19 million records. France had a problem, and it had a name. The clock started on April 13th. That's when ants first detected what they called unusual activity on their network. Something was pulling data at a rate that didn't match normal usage. Automated. Relentless. Millions of requests. 2 days later, on April 15th, the agency formally reported the incident to the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office. The Cybercrime Unit, OFAC, France's Office Against Cybercrime, was brought in to lead the investigation. On April 20th, the French Ministry of the Interior went public. They confirmed the breach but released no details about the suspect. The portal was taken offline for emergency maintenance. On April 24th, ANTES published an update confirming the damage. 11.7 million accounts compromised. That number was lower than what Breach 3D had claimed. The difference likely included inactive or duplicate records, but the scale was still staggering. Behind the scenes, OFAC was already closing in. The investigation moved fast for one simple reason. Breach 3D couldn't stop talking. He had bragged on forums. He had engaged with journalists. He had taunted the French government in writing. Every post, every message, every interaction left a trail. For someone who had pulled off one of the largest government data breaches in French history, he made the most basic mistake a hacker can make. He wanted the credit. On April 25th, 12 days after the breach was first detected, French police arrested a 15-year-old at his home. The Paris public prosecutor, Laure Becquot, announced the arrest 5 days later. The suspect was not named. French law protects the identity of minors, but prosecutors confirmed he was believed to be the person behind the alias Breach 3D. The charges were severe: unauthorized access to a government automated data processing system, extraction and distribution of personal data, possession of hacking tools. Each offense carries up to 7 years in prison and a fine of 300,000 euros for a 15-year-old. The judicial investigation was formally opened on April 29th. Prosecutors requested that the minor be placed under judicial supervision while the case proceeds. According to French sources close to the investigation, the suspect had no extraordinary technical skills. He was described as highly active on Discord and underground cybercriminal forums, a self-taught teenager who had learned to exploit known vulnerabilities by watching tutorials and reading public documentation. He didn't need to be a genius. He just needed the door to be unlocked. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The system that Breach 3D hacked, ANTS, is the same system the French government had just put in charge of protecting children online. Their new age verification app, designed to prevent anyone under 15 from accessing social media, runs through ANTS infrastructure. A 15-year-old hacked the system designed to protect 15-year-olds, and he wasn't alone. In January 2026, French police arrested an 18-year-old suspected of breaching the French Shooting Federation and leaking the personal data of over 1 million members. That stolen data was later used as a roadmap for burglaries and firearm theft across the country. On April 20th, 5 days before Breach 3D was detained, a 21-year-old known online as Hexdex was arrested at his home in western France. He was suspected of carrying out approximately 100 separate data breaches since late 2025. His targets included 15 French sports federations, the Ministry of Education, and dozens of private organizations. 3 hackers, ages 15, 18, and 21. All arrested within 4 months, all operating independently, all targeting French institutions. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu visited the ANTS offices personally. He announced 200 million euros in emergency funding for cybersecurity, pulled from the France 2030 investment program. He spoke about creating a new digital authority for the state, and then he said something that no prime minister wants to say out loud. Since the beginning of 2026, we've had an enormous number of digital intrusions and data thefts, roughly 3 per day. We are dealing with the heist of the century, except it happens practically every month. The IDOR vulnerability that Breach 3D exploited has been publicly documented for over a decade. It appears in every cybersecurity textbook. It's taught in every introductory web development course. It is, by every professional standard, inexcusable in a production government system. And yet it was there. On a portal that handles passports, national IDs, and driver's licenses for a third of France's population. The 11.7 million people whose data was stolen can't undo the breach. Their names, dates of birth, addresses, and phone numbers are now permanently in circulation on criminal marketplaces. That data will be used for phishing attacks, identity fraud, and social engineering for years to come. All because a server didn't ask one simple question: are you allowed to see this? Breach 3D is 15. Under French law, he faces up to 7 years in prison and a 300,000 euro fine. His name will never be made public. His future is in the hands of a juvenile court. But the real question isn't about him. It's about the door he walked through. Because if a teenager with no extraordinary skills can download the identities of 12 million people by changing a number in a URL, the problem was never the hacker. It was the lock.